Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Let's turn to the Environmental Protection Agency's grant program for environmental justice. Alicia, the Journal recently had an editorial on this, focusing on some poking around in those grant awards by the office of West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Can you give us a sense of what they found?
Well, this is just amazing. It was kind of hidden in plain sight, is that one of these grant awards, and again, recall the Inflation Reduction Act, it included tons of pork. It included these tax credits for businesses, but also grants for climate justice. And there was a $3 billion program that would go to quote-unquote environmental justice groups to distribute around to other groups. And what Shelley Moore Capito's office found is that one of the grant recipients that was announced last December that would receive $50 million actually had pretty long track record of advocating against Israel and actually helped coordinate essentially pro-Hamas protests. If you actually watch them and read some of the signs that they're hanging, some of them were like amusing, as Genocide Joe has to go. There were others like Free Palestine is a climate justice issue. The U.S. government funds Palestinian genocide. And this is a climate justice group, right? Most of the stuff that if you go to the website really doesn't have to do with climate. It's just an amalgam of other progressive and leftist ideas and issues. And one of these, again, is Palestine. Most of their work has to do with anti-Israel advocacy more than actual climate issues.
But I think it would come as a surprise to many taxpayers that there is this kind of money being thrown around. I mean, I've read the stories about the struggles of the Biden administration to shovel all of this Inflation Reduction Act climate money out the door, including money that is being spent by Washington to help support EV chargers, which are taking longer to build than was expected. But Alicia, it's pretty astounding here if this is really a $3 billion grant program for environmental justice, and it is essentially funding these kind of activist and community groups. Often, I think Republicans are asked, if you take control of the government again and you're trying to balance the budget, bring the expenses in line with the tax revenue, where would you start? It seems to me that this is a pretty obvious answer for many of these Republicans as we go toward this November election.
I think that's right. But the problem is some of this money is already going out the door so fast. And that's the administration's goal, is to get it out before the Republicans can come in and actually zero out some of these programs in some kind of budget reconciliation bill. And I'd also point out that some of these programs are really essentially jobs programs for liberal activists and community organizers. It's funny, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and look up, there's actually an occupational category relating to environmental advocacy. There's been an explosion of jobs under the Biden administration, nearly doubling during his nearly 4 years. And that's because you have all these left-wing activist groups all of a sudden getting money from the government to essentially oppose fossil fuels or do other things. And again, this particular group, Climate Justice Alliance, it wasn't just involved in climate issues. It was involved in anti-Israel protests, as well as has been very active in the anti-police movement and such. And a lot of this money is just pure pork funding liberal groups that are trying to commandeer government in various ways to advance their own agenda. And I think Republicans, if they can, I think their aim will be to zero out some of these programs. But the question is, how much money will have already gone out the door before they're able to do that?
Here's a bit of the grant award from the Environmental Protection Agency. It says that Climate Justice Alliance will have 2 core strategies, including to resource community-based organizations to address past, current, and future environmental health and justice challenges, and to coordinate efficient, effective, and equitable grant-making and report processes across EPA's 10 regions and at the national level, thereby reducing grassroots organizations' barriers to accessing federal resources. So part of this, Alicia, sounds like it is a outsourcing of grant making from the EPA to these kinds of groups. And so not only is the Climate Justice Alliance getting some funding, but it is getting funding to pass out to its own partners. And notably, the Climate Justice Alliance says on its website that more than $3 trillion will move through federal agencies via policies such as the Inflation Reduction Act and Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Now is the time for grassroots organizations to influence the direction of and step into governance of these monies. And so, Alicia, maybe there will be more to see here as we follow the trail of the funding from the taxpayer to the EPA, to the Climate Justice Alliance, to who knows where next.
Right. And I'm sure there will be many more rocks to turn over, and there will be a lot of investigations by both the House Republicans and Senate Republicans involving where is this money going. So all this, again, that Shelley Moore Capito's office uncovered was hiding in plain sight. It was basically on the website. But I imagine there's a lot of stuff that the Biden administration is trying not to disclose and won't release in terms of Freedom of Information Act requests to the public. And that may actually require the Congress to subpoena some documents and to show actually who's benefiting from all of this largesse and what isn't actually public yet. For instance, like what are all these groups actually doing with the money? We know where the money's going, but what are they actually doing with it?
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you all for listening. You can email us your own climate justice grant proposals at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.